Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus Show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Chris.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and demonic entities of the warp, and welcome to the 6 Plus Show. You will recognise this is not Tom, I'm afraid. This is Chris. Tom unfortunately can't make us. I know, big boo. Please don't turn off. We've got an interesting show for you today. We're going to be talking about some of the events we've been to, as well as an upcoming team event. Not only that, but today we are joined by a very sexy new face. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, guys. Nice to see you all.
So Jamie has finally made it. He's been really against joining us, so much so he gave his first one of his children tonsillitis. Then he went to the hospital another time, but finally he's run out of excuses and is here today. So
Forced to
thank
join
you for
you.
joining us. So obviously we always kick off with hobby progress. So Lee, is it going to be for the third time in a row random stuff?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I got fully swept up into demons recently, and then just absolutely off the cuff bought 9 flamers of Zinch.
As you do.
And then you persuaded me to build and paint them in one day, so I did that last weekend. But that was for the tournament that we'll go into in a minute. Other than that, I've been sort of back on the Chaos Space Marines, so getting back to some warp talons, and that's where I'm going to try and focus some energy over the next couple of weeks.
Very nice, very nice. And Jamie?
Well, I started collecting Tau back September, October time.
I'm sure you did, so not like a month ago. Okay.
No, definitely not a month ago.
No.
Been painting them very slowly. Up until about a month ago, I'd painted maybe 1,000 points. And now we have a tournament coming up, and suddenly realised I had to paint another probably 1,200 points in 3 or 4 weeks. So I've been madly doing that. Painting yellow Tau, which yellow is always pretty fun to do.
Absolute glutton for punishment there. Speed painting yellow Tau.
Fortunately, the airbrush has saved me a lot of hours of pain there. So
You got a secret sauce with your Tau, because what undercoat are you going for?
pink,
Pink. I mean,
I have heard that it works, so I mean...
Yeah, I can't give credit now. I can't remember the YouTube video I found it on, but it was on a fantasy chaos model, or Age of Sigmar now. And his turned out beautiful, so I thought I'd copy it, and mine look average at best. So it's a win for me.
and your basing, how's that going?
Yeah,
That's water base, isn't it?
No, I'm letting you
No,
down
it's
now.
chickened out.
Chickened out.
Of that. Yeah, I was originally going to, but realised that on the sort of 25mm bases of the Fire Warriors, finding decent water effects would be quite difficult. So, just stuck to a very muddy Battle of the Somme feel.
Nice. Trench warfare, so Tau love it.
Yeah.
It is the go-to. Okay. Obviously we've got a team tournament coming up this weekend, so I've just been making finishing touches to more additions to the Custodes force. I've got a kind of a infantry character that can be used for a variety of different things, like Praetorian Plate guy, or Trajan, or Blade Champion, anything like that. So I've just been working on that, which has been a major distraction from the one I'm supposed to be painting, which is actually my Inquisitor. After they film this, I will be returning to my Inquisitor just to get him done. But other than that, I am nearly there. I've managed to finish off 2 Galatus Dreadnoughts as well, because they're going into the list. I think after this, I'll be pretty much done with my painting of my Custodes, unless I want to add 2 more Achilles to my list, much like Manichima, and probably everyone else is about.
So that just means they're going to get hit with the balance data slate. I just wouldn't bother.
Yeah, no, I've got one which is half painted, which I'm staring at right now, but I chose to paint him white over a brown base coat, which was a terrible idea. And then
why did you base coat something brown? A brown spray over there or something?
I'm going to paint this one really clever, so I'm going to go Xandri Dust, and then I'm going to wash it. I can see it. I've washed it Agrax, and then I started doing layers of pallid witch flesh.
Which will look lovely when it's finished. But...
For the YouTube turns, you can see there, look, white, pretty, and gross Xandri.
To be fair, it does look nice, what you used
It
to
does
white
look
bit.
nice, yeah, absolutely. It's also, it makes me just shiver whenever I look at it. I'm like, so now at some point I will have to tackle him to take him on. But anyway, we keep alluding to tournaments, so why not let us step into the breach? We'll go with you firstly.
Yeah, sure.
You went to an RTT on Sunday.
I did.
Hosted by the fabulous guys at Twisted Dice. Yes. What was the exciting name of this particular event?
I think this one was just called the Twisted Series. It's going to be, I know,
it's like Oblivion or Apocalypse or something.
I apologise, Darren, if you ever watch these, and I've got it wrong, but yeah, I think it's just Twisted Series. This was part 1. I think there's part 2 sort of tickets are out there for that now already, and then I think that the intention is sort of to have a season-long sort of series of events of RTTs.
Awesome, yeah. I mean, they're good fun. We've been to lots of their events, be it RTTs or 2 days or anything like that. My first ever event, I think Lee is yours as well. Our first ever events were an RTT with those guys. So what was the venue like?
So the venue, for those who haven't been, so Twisted often run their events over 2 different venues. So sometimes it can be in a church hall that's a little bit larger. This one, because it's just an RTT, was in the Royal British Legion in Leighton Buzzard. So I've been there a lot of times. So that's where the local club is hosted anyway. And I've been to a number of events there too. So yeah, it's nice. I mean, there's enough space in there for, I think we had 26 tables, so fair bit of space. And they also have a really, really cheap bar. So
it's the dream.
For those who are just taking it a bit more easy, then you could have a nice drink as well.
Very, very nice. So the key questions, what was the terrain like?
The terrain on all the tables that I played on was good. I did play on the same table twice, so that sort of limited my exposure to it. To be honest with you, I was so pushed for time that I didn't have a huge amount of time to walk around and see other tables. But the ones I had, they were sort of medium dense, but with sort of typically ruins. There was only one that I looked at and thought, I don't know if I'd like to play on that one. And it was sort of Necron block terrain. But I think it had all been defined as ruins. It just didn't necessarily look... there was no sort of like L shape, so getting angles on it would have been quite easy for an army that's got a bit of ability.
So like Tau, for example.
Yeah, Tau would absolutely just come around the corner. Or they don't even need it, yeah. Jet bikes sort of would get around that quite comfortably. Yeah. But I mean, overall, I would say it was decent. Yeah, it was a nice mix. They never have the sort of the set layouts and the sort of the classic MDF that you see all
the tables to move and stuff.
Again, the ones I was at, there was room to move around all of them, and they had like booths next to them so you could sit as well.
Oh, okay.
Which meant that actually any deployment zone that we could get around quite easily. In the main section, the tables were sort of end to end, like you would typically see at a larger event. So if you're sort of trying to go sort of opposite ends on the long ways deployments, it can be quite hard. So yeah, I would say there was enough room, but if I was right in the center of that other pack, it might have been a bit tight, but I don't know what else they could really do about that.
Okay, so people coming to these sorts of events, Twisted Dice are picking up with their events, so they're growing in popularity. Coming from further afield, what's the parking like?
So there is a really big multi-story next door that's not very expensive. In fact, this weekend it was free because the machine was broken. The issue that we had, and I noticed it early on and had to sort of go to Darren and to explain, was that they actually closed the shutters to it at 5 o'clock. Now the event wasn't due to finish till about 6 o'clock, which meant that we had sort of 50 people who had to then go and move their cars. Now there is an outside bit that you can park at that becomes free at 5 o'clock. The issue then is, can you get everyone to can you add 15 minutes onto everybody's game to allow them to move their car? It's because you can't park there before and there's no way to pay for it. So if it was on a Saturday, it'd be great because it's open till 8 o'clock. It was just the fact it was a Sunday.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. Food, was there any food on offer?
Food, I heard there was fried chicken. I didn't see any fried chicken, and I'm really sad about that. But what there is even if you don't get sort of the food that they offer, and I think they typically do offer food, is there's a co-op right nearby. I think it's a Waitrose, actually, a Cafe Nero, and you are quite near the town centre. So if you did want to walk to get a Subway or another takeaway, something, you could do that. So
okay, very nice. And of course, with all that fried chicken, how was the toilets?
Yeah, again, much better than a lot of events. I think given that it's a real sort of building, it's been there for a long time.
It's a real building.
It's not just like a pop-up, like Portaloo type thing.
Yeah.
There were several toilets in there, and just because there was only sort of 50 people, it wasn't quite as bad as some of these huge events that we've been to. That they'd still have one toilet per sort of 100 guys, whereas this was sort of one per 50,
just
which
queuing out of the door.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's two. They're two separate blocks, so it's quite good.
Okay, excellent. Right, well, that's all the important stuff. I guess we should probably talk about the Warhammer then.
Yeah.
So you were taking not the Thousand Suns?
No, so first time in ages I've not taken Thousand Suns. And my logic for it was just that it was an RTT. And then as I was looking at my UKTC points, there was no real way, unless I was going to win the event, there was no way I was actually going to be able to improve my score. So I thought, give that as an opportunity to try something completely different. So I ended up taking a Disciples of Bellicor demons list, so all demons, no Chaos Space Marines in it. Something I've only run once or twice. I had one practice game, which is more than I normally get. But I just thought I'd give it a go, see how it does. I felt like it might have had some play into the new big boys that are out there at the moment.
Okay, so what are the bonuses you get from being the Disciples of Bellicor?
Yeah, so normally in your demons list, you get the demonic Loki, which are things like if you're pure Slanesh, you get advance and charge. If you're Nurgle, you get extra damage on 6s, etc., etc. In exchange for that, you end up getting one which is far better, which is called the Locus of Shadows, which is over 12 inches away. Everything in your army is -1 to hit, and you cannot re-roll against it to hit as well, which is just huge. It only works when you're within 6 inches of a character, but the way that you're going to play the list is you're always going to be, which is quite nice.
Okay, so -1 to hit,
yeah,
no rerolls. That sounds like it could be good into shooting armies, for example, Tau.
Yeah.
So, what did you play firstly?
Oh, my first game was against Tau. Isn't that funny?
Not.
I know, yeah, it's so weird. The gods have ordained it.
So, go on then. What did it work? That's the question.
Yes, it did. So, if you want to cut and edit it there, yes, it works. If you want to please explain a bit more, the guy had brought all the good new Tau really, and then a couple of sort of more fun bits as well. So there was a Storm Surge in there, a couple of Riptides, a couple of Ghost Kills, a bunch of Fire Warriors, Crisis Bomb, some drones, and so that was the meat of it. And we had and I always forget the name of it, the deployment where you're on the narrow end is far away from each other. So
Hammer and Anvil. So we're certainly more than 12 inches away. He got first turn, and I actually had a fair amount of places to hide. Given the ranges that he had, he wasn't still going to get within 12 at least. And to be hitting on 5s, I think in turn 1, I think he killed sort of 2 or 3 Nurgling bases, and that was it. So when I was watching the dice, and I was like, how many of these would have been hits had it not been for Locus of Shadows, and you also without the rerolls? And it was like things like the Storm Surge out of it's like billion shots were hitting like 3 times.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can do about that. And it got to the point where I was a little apologetic. But I'm so sorry.
Never apologise to Tau.
No, the one thing that your list does, I've come and turned it off basically.
Yeah.
And he was a good sport about it. He was a really great guy actually. And sort of said like, don't apologise because I'm playing Tau, so I don't deserve
I deserve the hate.
I don't have a soul. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good game. In the end, I would have been tabled. I just had nothing left over time, but I've managed to just create this insurmountable points lead in the end, just by choking the primary, just throwing things into his line, stealing the primary every single time. He wouldn't have really scored any significant primary until turns 4 and 5, by which point it was just too late.
Very nice. What was the MVP for you in that game, do you think?
Nurglings, probably. In all my games, I would say they were my most consistent. But in that game, I actually think it was the Squads of Bloodletters. With the ability to drop in and do that 3d6 charge +1, was able to choke him out of the primary and just sort of get onto those objectives, not necessarily kill stuff, but just get onto things and either force it to fall back so it couldn't shoot me or had a penalty to shoot, or just sort of killing his Fire Warriors off and making sure he couldn't do any actions or sort of holding any of his home field objectives.
Okay. So do you think his list just struggled from lack of marker lights?
Well, he had 4 marker drones in a squad, and he had 1 marker drone in a squad of crisis suits. So I looked at it and thought, there is a lack of marker lights here. But then he also had this relic on his Cadre Fireblade that was allowed him to roll 6 marker light dice as part of the action for that. So he sort of was actually reliably sort of getting sort of 7 or 8, which was enough. The issue is that was only ever cancelling out my -1 to hit anyway.
Yeah.
And typically I was just feeding him stuff I didn't mind him shooting. It was meant to die anyway. So I don't think it was a lack of marker lights. Not really.
Did you actually kill anything in this game?
I killed not much. All the fire warriors.
Okay.
The stealth suits. Honestly, that might be it.
And that is why we don't need to kill things in Warhammer to win a game with children.
And that's I was trying to explain before, not on the podcast, but just sort of how the list isn't that interactive. Like it doesn't really kill stuff; it just stands in places and stops you scoring points, which is a really interesting, different way to play.
And there are so many different armies out there that do that. You know, the Dark Angels, Terminators, even Necrons, sort of like the old builds where you just, I'm going to die slowly, but I'm going to be on the objectives as I die, so I'm going to outscore you.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it plays. And especially when as you know, I took a big amount of reserve points. So a lot of my strategy was, okay, well, I'm going to lump my pinks as far forward as I possibly can. And then as you kill them, that will help me even more to steal your objectives. I'm just splitting onto them throughout the game.
Okay. Yeah, so the flames you painted on that Saturday, did they do work on the Sunday in this game?
In this game, not really. They were just holding objectives. There was nothing for them to shoot at. Everything that they ever got in range of was like a ghost kill or a riptide. I'm like, well, they're not going to, realistically, they're not taking that down. And they didn't really need to. They were more sort of 9 bodies with a 3-up invuln with warp surge and just sort of stood there and hoped for the best. I did have a heroic or disastrously heroic morale phase, and I lost 3 flamers to that. 3, which was really. I had a really bad day for morale actually.
Yeah, you have mentioned it. We'll come back to that. So, do you remember the score?
It was 79-69.
Great number.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a solid start.
Yeah.
So you're 1-0.
Yes.
You're enjoying life. You're getting used to this list that you've never really played before. What do you get to go up against next?
Well, I go from not understanding any of my list at all to understanding my opponent's list 100%, because he's actually running a Thousand Suns list with a lot of stuff that I normally use. So Arrowmen, Terminators, loads of rubrics, Spawn. Although he was using Cult of Time, which I never use. But it sort of just gave me the opportunity to try and play around him in that sense as well, because I sort of knew what that was going to do.
Yeah, because it's they're bringing back Terminators, right?
Yeah, so they've got the spell that allows them to bring back. You're going to use it typically on Terminators, but in models it could be a Rubric Marine as well. He also had a relic that allowed his Warlord to get back up after dying, and a Warlord trait that said that if you cast a power on a 9, you can immediately cast another power that can't be denied.
Yeah. Okay.
So stuff that I'm familiar with, but didn't concern me that much. Obviously, he's got lots of AP2 shooting that I don't care about at all, which is fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because from my end, I'm thinking, well, he's probably got a lot of bolter fire, which can chew through your 5-up inlines, and he's got the psychic, which, as we know from Thousand Suns, can be great. You've got some deny capability.
Yeah, I have 3 denies.
So how did the game play out?
So again, this one, it was what used to be priority targets. No, it used to be direct assault.
Okay, so it's a 5-die big objective in the
that's
middle.
right.
Grab it.
So we both forward deployed a unit. So I did some Nurglings, and he spent 2 for Risen Rubrikai. So we both ended up moving out to the sides there anyway. And all I did really was just launch up the pinks to the middle, and just said, "Come and take this objective from me if you can," which he obviously easily could have if he was able to get his Terminators in. And this is where the secret source of the list came into play, really, which was using the Noctic discipline. So that psychic powers you only get when you're running Cypress Belloc, or I was starting 1 squad of my Bloodletters on the board every time, charging something in the backfield and just tagging as much as I possibly could. And then what I would do then is just again using Cypress Belloc or power. Another one is called Wreathed in Shades. So this is a psychic power that you cast on something, and that becomes untargetable unless it's the closest or within 12 inches. But because the Bloodletters were always going to be closer, they could never get to actually shoot the pink horrors. So he ended up throwing spawn in there. So five spawn getting sort of 15 D3 or whatever it is attacks. Was chewing through them, but I was just putting out reserve points the whole time, and I was never going to get that objective up.
Did it pain you having to kill the spawn? Because I know they are your beloved.
You know what? I wish my spawn performed like this. So mine just didn't do it. Jack, who was my opponent, absolutely great guy. I love playing him. He did exactly what I would have done, which was just throw the spawn with a 4-pin Von, give them presage, and just chuck them in the middle one to see if they could tear things up. And they were killing quite a lot of stuff. But ultimately, when you're killing 5-point models, it's just it's an uphill battle, isn't it?
It's bad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So are the Nurglings the MVP in this game as well?
No, it would be the pinks in this game. You know what? Though? This was the game that I actually felt the synergy of the list. Okay. So I had the Bloodletters doing their thing in the back. I had the Fiends for the first time becoming helpful. So getting in, and then so where enemy units could have shot on at the pinks because they could have gone closer, lumping the Fiends into them just so they couldn't fall back. So I'm starting to trap things and just dictate what they can shoot at. Nurglings again were good just because they were cheap and be able to hold an objective without any concern. But in this game, I'd say it was probably the pinks just because the game was one I lost on that center objective and he just couldn't take it from me.
Sure. Okay, and does the kill count increase in this game? No. Still,
I reckon I kill 10 rubrics.
Okay,
and 3 or 4 spawn. Oh, and he had 2 squads of 10 Zangors, and I killed 19 Zangors as well.
Oh, you
didn't finish them off.
Calm down. Couldn't even kill 20 Zangors.
I'm saying that. I don't even know if I killed that many. I remember leaving one squad on 1 in the middle because I wanted to farm it for points the next time because you get points if you killed something that held an objective before.
I think it'd be really interesting to do like a practice game where you and your opponent, you just like forego the kind of the killing part of it, and it's just purely can you outmaneuver your opponent?
Yeah.
Like, can you get your stuff in position to take over objectives and all that sort of thing?
Yeah,
I think that'd be a really interesting training.
You'd learn a lot, I think, and that's kind of how I had to play because it's using a really old 8th edition book that just has absolutely no hitting power. You've got 2 units in the entire book, or maybe 3 if you count the flamers, that actually hit anything, and that's Bellicor, who no one wants to go anywhere near. And you've got the Bloodletters and you've got the Flamers as well. And the Flamers are only good because they've got the strat to do the mortal wounds on 6s to wound. And it's uncapped because it's such an old book.
Yeah.
But honestly, everything else is just Nurglings or Furies or Pink Horrors that just bounce. Like, you should have seen me firing Pink Horrors. Just like, at the end, I was like, I'm just not going to fire them because I just can't be bothered.
Points, isn't it? Yeah.
I reckon if you fire the full 90 at a squad of Custodians, you do no wounds.
Yeah, exactly. So you did just mention Bellicor, who I feel like we've kind of forgotten is in the list because he's not really mentioned.
No.
Yeah. He's scary. So
the reason why I've not mentioned him is because I didn't use him.
Yeah.
Kind of in both
a lot
games.
Of points to not use.
Yeah, 380 points. So in the Tau game, he sort of moved. I had a good jumping off point actually in both games. In the Tau game, though, my opponent was able to he had so much maneuverability that he was able to get his sort of 4 damage Riptide into him and never got the Storm Surge in. But he just absorbed sort of 2 to 3 turns of firepower with the -1 to hit always and the -1 to wound. It does add up. Yeah. And there were no real juicy targets for him to get to because they were basically deployed on the back line. Those big robots, so that was fine. And in the second game, again, he was sort of just hovering around the midboard behind a nice big L ruin, sort of saying, if you come over here, I'll eat your face. Yeah. I actually think if you could run Disciples of Bellicor without Bellicor, I would. it would be better.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, I know. But it's just a lot of points. I mean, it's nice to have the full rerolls to hit that he can give you. Mm-hmm. But what are you putting it on? It's just like Pink Horrors,
bad boy pinks.
Yeah. I was putting on Bloodletters every time. But when they're a squad of 20, they hit on 2s anyway, so...
Tasty. Okay. So it sounds like you won that game. What was the score?
Yeah, so that one was 88-67.
Okay, so you're scoring well considering you're not killing anything. Are your secondaries kind of just like survival ones and mission ones then?
So yeah, I didn't take any to the last or anything like that, just because it was always going to be Bellicor and people always want to shoot him. Yeah. So in that game, I had taken, I was basically always taking Stranglehold. Banners, where it was appropriate to take banners. I'm just seeing which ones I took in that one. I had Rod in that one as well.
Okay.
So Rod, Stranglehold, and I took no prisoners in that game, just because he had so many bodies. Of rubrics.
Thousand Suns do give it away, don't they?
Yeah, and it was mostly the spawn. I was like, well, that's going to be a lot of easy points if I can actually get to them. But I did kill them, and then the Zangors, and I was like, well, I actually have to kill that many rubrics, then everyone is a bonus after that. And if you're taking away those things that actually score points, then I was always likely to have a good chance to win.
No, that's very nice. So you've played Tau.
Yeah.
You defeated Tau, one of the big boys.
I know, I was very pleased.
That
was a moral victory by then.
Yeah, Thousand Suns, not such a big boy. You're 2-0. You're thinking, I can bring this down. There are lots of lists here that I can deal with. So which of these lists did you get the joys of facing in your final game?
I got Custodes, which is funny.
And every other player who's doing well in any sort of tournament, got to face Custodes.
It was funny because I was looking around and I thought, I can't believe I've won 2 games with this list. I'm very pleased. And I was looking around and there's some tables near me and there were some Necrons and there were some Orcs. There's a really horrible Terminator list with Dark Angels there. Really, really gross list, actually. I probably would single out anybody who did that as a bit of a reprobate.
Human being. Yeah, absolutely.
But I was looking at them thinking, I could win these games. I could win them. But I thought, no, let's just do Custodes instead. Let's see how that goes. It was Custodes for my final game into the it's a hold 2, hold 3 as well. So that's the other bit of spice to this one.
That's 6, bit of spice. Okay, and you were playing against Jamie, weren't you? Who came second?
Jamie, I think it's Balcom.
Yeah. Came second in the ITC last year with Custodes.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and you could see that he was thinking about the game better than I was.
Yeah. So I assume he was just Custodes good stuff?
Yeah, so 3 squads of bikes. And Emperor's Chosen, is that the one?
Yeah, not Emperor's Children.
I wanted to say that. He had Trajan, he had Praetorian Plate, he had a squad of 5 sisters, Vexilla. He basically ran your list, Chris.
Yeah, well, he learns from the best, right?
Yeah. Well, he's saying he learned from you.
Yeah, I'm making that claim right here. As I'm sure anyone who's following the competitive scene at all at the moment knows, all Custodes lists are very, very similar. With maybe
they don't have that many units, do they? So
I don't know, and it just so happens that 1,100 points are pretty optimized already.
Yeah.
Unless you go in a very different list building direction. So I'm still thinking, you've got a lot of stuff. Has he got that many attacks? Can he chew through you?
Well, that was my logic when I built the list. I was like, well, Tau's the most one hit no rerolls. That's relevant in that. And then I'm looking at Custodes thinking, well, they just don't have that many attacks. Like they're all running salvo launchers. No one's running hurricane bolters anymore. He's gonna have to close me down, and then I'm just going to tarp him the entire game.
Yeah, I see.
Which made a lot of sense in my head. But spoilers, it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way at all.
Okay, so go on then. Talk us through the pain.
So I went second. So I think I went second in all 3 of the games.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I may have gone first in the second game, but it was irrelevant, really. This was the one that mattered. So I went second, and I tried to hide as much as I could, sort of deployed predominantly down the left, and then a couple of units on the right. And I thought he would sort of counter-deploy in the same way, but he put everything down the weak side and just basically cleaned that side of the board off. Made it very hard for me to hold any objectives on that side, and it was going to be an uphill battle from there. I thought I'd committed enough to the one side, but hadn't. And it was one of those ones where he was just upon me before I could do anything about it. And my list kind of works by having enough maneuverability to get around. And that maneuverability is achieved by either really quick units, so things like the Fiends, or Furies, or forward deployment. Now, the problem with the forward deployment is that it just gives you something to charge and gives your opponent free movement if you go second. And that's effectively why I pushed out so far to the sides, but didn't really help. And then the magic of the deep strike, bloodletters, and also being able to use the Shrouded Step psychic power, so it's like a de-jump style power. But I was amazed at how well he was able to shut down with such few models the space that you can actually go in. And the things that I'm trying to move around are quite big units. And I thought So yeah, he was upon me after the first turn and sort of started to choke me a little bit in terms of where I could go. I was like, well, I've got a lot of mortal wound output here if I want it. It's all bounced, obviously.
4 up, feel no pain.
Yeah,
maybe.
so it wasn't the psychic powers really. It was the flamers. I thought, well, if I can get the flamers to unleash into a squad of bikes, that might kill 2 bikes, and it did nothing.
Oh, okay.
I think I did sort of 6 mortal wounds. I think 3. It was about average. It was no like crazy spike. It just doesn't do as much as you think it should.
Sure.
But obviously, it's the difference in a dead bike and not, which is 100 points or so, right? So, which is far too cheap for what they do. But
yeah, it's only 85. Hate to break it to you.
So yeah, I mean, I was sort of penned in. If he had the ability to take Herd the Prey, he would have maxed it, I think.
Okay.
So I was sort of trying to trade units, and what I was doing was sort of stealing an objective, and then he'd either be able to heroically intervene, or just had enough stuff that he just move and just wipe me off of it in the turn. So I just had no staying power. I wasn't sticking to anything.
All right. So did you manage to kill anything?
I killed, I think, 1 squad of bikes, the Vexilla.
Which he didn't care about. Yeah.
Which he didn't care about. It was holding a backfield objective, so it actually did swing the points quite a lot for 1 turn. Then he moved something else back and just obliterated me. Yeah. And honestly, I don't think there was anything else. But Be'lakor actually got to fight for the first time in the entire tournament, so that was something.
Yeah, okay. So do you feel the list has a game into Custodes then?
I'm not sure.
Needs more testing.
I need to try it again. I think that I assumed I would lose, and therefore I felt like I did. You know what I mean? I felt like I talked myself into losing that game.
You just assumed you were going to lose the game, so you just kind of didn't necessarily apply yourself in the same way.
Yeah.
I've experienced it.
I don't know if I would have been able to change it in those circumstances, but I think that doesn't mean to say it couldn't be done in future games.
Mm-hmm.
I still think there's the logic as to why it should have or could work is still there. So
yeah. Okay, so you finish 2-1.
Yeah.
Which is very respectable. Like we always talk how Lee only ever gets to practice lists at tournaments.
Yeah.
So now you've had 3 games with the list. Yeah. If you were to go to, let's say, GT next weekend and you were going to take this style list, and for all those demon players out there who are clinging on for dear life.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you clearly like this style of list. So what sort of things do you think could be changed or what went well?
So I already had a little sort of a re-go at the list. I feel I had about 165 points of summoning reserve, which in my head was earmarked for splitting. It was enough to get me a change caster and a unit of something if I needed it.
Yeah.
In reality, that was too much.
Okay.
In the final game against Jamie Balcom, I think I only used 50 points worth. So then you're playing.
It's a danger, isn't it? Playing
it is a danger because it's the only you get pinned if you get pinned in like I did. Because of the restrictions to summoning, that has to be 9 inches away from somebody, but also within 12 inches of yourself. Mm-hmm. It can be very, very hard to place a unit, and that happened. Yeah. So I was splitting pinks because it was the only way I could spend my points. So in the next iteration of the list, what I've done is, so my current list has 3 squads of Nurglings in it. Mm-hmm. I would actually drop that to 2. Yeah. Just because I found that I was placing 2, and I was like, hey, they'll be good there, and he'll be good here. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with these other ones? They were redundant.
And sometimes it just gives your opponent free charges, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Targets, grind targets, etc.
So my plan is currently to drop one of those. I've got a load of Plague Bearers that I did summon a couple of times that were quite helpful. Just that disgusting resilient against sort of the indirect shooting from the tower and all that sort of stuff. So I'll probably bring some of those in. And actually what I'm tempted to do is maybe drop one of the squads of Furies as well. I had them in from sort of forgetting that the edition had changed. Things like Engage and Retrieve, where you used to sort of just automatically do. Mm-hmm. Now you have to roll for, which I did fail. I rolled the 1, the 6, so I did fail it.
Yeah.
And also... you need to have 3 models for Engage now as well. And they are very flimsy. They're sort of 5 up invuln, T3, 1 win. So I'd probably keep 1 just because they're quite useful in the backfield because they're only 45 points. So it's the cheapest sort of objective unit I've got. And then probably chuck in more Flamers or Bloodlayers. I just think Flamers for 20 points for 2 wounds with a 4 up invuln is quite nice.
Yeah, I think so. What's the most you can fit in a list?
Flamers,
Yeah.
27.
How many do you own?
18.
It's not enough, is it, Lee?
No.
We'll keep an eye out.
Keep an eye on that.
We'll keep
I made
an
some
eye
good
on that
deals.
one. I'll see if I can spot anything to tag you in.
The problem is that when you're building a Disciple to Bellicott list, is you have to have an equal number of God-specific units. So that's the tax. Well, there's a lot of tax to it, but that's one of them. So if I want to have 3 squads of 9 Flamers, I've also got to have 3 Nurgle squads, 3 Slanesh squads, and 3 Khorne squads, and Bellicor. And all of a sudden, that's quite a lot of points. Like whether or not you fit that in, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's interesting. So, Jamie, you're our resident Tau expert, of course. Lee's just beaten Tau.
Yeah.
Do you think he's cracked it and Tau aren't all that now? Or do you think your list, for example, has a good game into this?
I think my list probably has more of a game into Lee's than what that list did. My list is a lot less about killing models and more about scoring points.
Okay.
I have 3 to the last... sort of that are difficult to kill. Broadside sitting at the back, Crisis that can fire and fade, or strike and fade now, and also a commander that's always going to be, hiding out the way. Retrieve Knackman data. Obviously, he should be able to screen me out fairly well, but I've got stealth squads that can appear from the board edge. Also, Vesper that can deep strike to hopefully, at least get an 8 on that. And then probably not Stranglehold, but engage on all fronts. If not, then I've got a Stranglehold, a Tau-specific one that can, as for the first 3 turns, as long as I hold half of the objectives, don't need to hold more, I get 4 points a turn for the first 3 turns. So
so my opponent did take that, but didn't score any points on it until the end of the game. So I think he had the one where he could score turns 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, so he ran Cao Yon.
Yeah.
He went Cao Yon?
I don't know what the difference is.
Oh, man. So it's like, well, Jamie, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so Montcar being movement, as Nick Nanavati likes to say, and Cao Yon be killing. So Montcar enables you to move and advance and count as remaining stationary to the end of the shooting phase. And also anything within 18, then 12, then 9 in the first 3 rounds. Enable you to get +1 AP and also reroll wounds of 1 as long as they're the closest eligible target.
Gotcha.
And then Cao Yon is turn 3, 4, 5. Allows you to fall back and shoot at -1. And also you get exploding 6s on turn 3, 5s on turn 4, and exploding 4s on turn 5.
Maybe he was looking at my list thinking that the AP wouldn't be helpful. Yeah,
and also he's a slower army, like he's probably looking at your infantry thinking it's going to take some time to get to me. The exploding 6s, 5s and 4s are obviously a lot more helpful later on.
I mean, he didn't need them. He tabled me comfortably in the end. So
there's also a couple of strats that vary depending on you going Montcar or Cao Yon and various warlord traits. But yeah, I think my list may have a bit more game into yours, but it's still a tough game because
I was
hitting on 4s and 5s is no easy task.
I was looking. There was the player who eventually went on to win the event. I was looking at that list, and it had 1 billion indirect smart missile shots. That's like, if I play into that, I will absolutely get wrecked. Yeah, because there's nowhere to hide, and into my all my stuff is T3, maybe T4 if I'm lucky.
He's not getting markers into you if you're out of line of sight. That's the problem. So he's always hitting you on 5s with no rerolls. There's still stuff tough to overcome.
Yeah, so okay, I think that is a good point actually. It's obviously it's the orc weight of 5, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But 5s at the end of the day, and they're not exploding like the orcs ones do. So I think that'd be interesting. So what I'm basically hearing is that you two need to play your list in a battle report. And
I feel like that's a win-win for me because if I lose that, fine. Jamie loses it.
It's humiliating, absolutely, which I'm all in favour of. So we'll get that. So fans, all 3 of you out there, if you want to see that in a battle report, let us know. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for that, Lee. It sounds like
it was a good event. I had a lot of fun. I would run the list again, or in a version of it.
Well, we've got an event March, another Twisted event, haven't we?
Yes.
Sort of like March the 12th, 11th, something like that. Are you going to be taking demons?
Short of any changes, significant changes, then yeah, I think I will.
Very exciting. Well,
I don't know why. I don't know why I've decided this now.
Yeah, this was very random because you suddenly got into it after listening to a podcast about.
Yeah, Jamie's fault actually.
Yeah. And then you're like,
take the
oh
blame
yeah,
from
really
it.
demons. Or yeah, Orbit Chaos Space Marines. And then like a day later you say, well, I've decided going to focus on the Chaos Space Marines. And then in the background you were beavering away on this.
Yeah.
This entity.
It's funny. If it wasn't for the Army of Renown, I wouldn't be running demons at the moment.
Yeah. Sure.
I know there's a lot of hamstringing by taking the Disciples of Bellicolis, the restrictions that you've got, but I just feel like if you're running big monsters right now,
They definitely play into the current meta a lot better than the likes of the Slash monster build.
Yeah,
and the killable.
absolutely.
I've got my keepers. I'd love to run them again, but it's not the time for them right now.
No, salvos do enjoy keeper secrets.
Yeah.
As I found out at Beachhead. Okay, cool. Well, excellent. Top work, buddy.
Cheers.
We are now going to move on to something a bit different, and we're now going to talk about a doubles tournament we attended. So yeah, doubles. Don't know how many of you guys out there have played doubles before. It's something a bit different. Lee and I once attended a doubles event. It was a bit of a shambles. We played 2 turns of matches for 3 games. And
also, the place was a bit of a shambles. Do you remember?
The place was a massive shambles. Thankfully, this place was not, because we attended Saffron Slam in Saffron Walden. We've been to this place before, where that was where I managed to get my win with the AdMech. So fond memories. It's a really well run event by Lewis and Co. It's just in like a pretty standard hall, but it's got mixed terrain. The car parking is good. There is our favourite shop in the world, Jamie, isn't there? The Nissa.
So the sandwich-free Nisa.
Yeah, there was no sandwiches. So, Lewis, if you're listening, you need to sort that out and have a word with them. I know they went and got Subway, but we're simple folk. In terms of the event itself, as I said, it's pretty smoothly run, good prizes. Jamie, you pretty happy with the event?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to shout out to Lewis at Elmo Miniatures. Like I said, we went there previously, really enjoyed it. Ran my custodies there, not so fun. I think the terrain was definitely better this time, more plentiful. There was some sort of bowling alley tables last time that wasn't terribly great, but this time, I don't think there's any qualms with anything. Thoroughly enjoyable.
Absolutely. And now that we have given you a shout out, Lewis, you need to paint Jamie's Taunar for free.
Yes.
Okay. That needs to be done, just so you know. So doubles, always a bit different. This was a 1,500 point event. So each player took 750 points. Lee, as you've heard, his approach was, I'm going to swamp the board and I'm not going to kill things. We decided to go for the opposite approach, and we were going to say we're just going to kill them all before they kill us. At the time of list design, Jamie was working with his Grey Knights, I was working with my AdMech, and we thought, why don't we go Dread Knights, for that firepower and a bit of punch, and then we'll go with 20 Vanguard, 20 Rangers, and just kind of sit in the mid-board backfield, blast away with the anti-infantry stuff, and just have a nicely balanced list. Then the new Custodes book came out, and we decided we didn't want any sort of balance. So I ended up taking the Custodes, and Jamie still took the Dread Knights. So, Jamie, what exactly was your 750 points?
So my 750 points consisted of 1 Nemesis Grandmaster with Vortex of Doom, which I don't think we used the entire tournament.
Nope.
And Empiric Amplification, which we probably still only used twice, 3 times.
Yeah.
Then 1 squad of Strike Marines just to fill out the troop slot in the patrol. 1 squad of Servitors just for some extra points left over at the end and nothing else to really spend it on. And 2 more Nemesis Dread Knights, 1 with sword, 1 without. All my Dread Knights with silencers and side cannons. So throwing out as much Dacker downwind as possible, trying to just clear the field as quick as we could.
Yeah, absolutely. And on 4 up in Von bodies on the big stuff. So we're sitting on 12 models there on Jamie's side. And then I've gone and opted for an Outrider. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. So I had a Shield Captain on bike with all the trimmings. I then had a unit of 3 bikes, another unit of 3 bikes, and then 5 Flamer Sisters. Because that was the cheapest way I could fill out the kind of the outrider. So as you can see, it was all killer, no filler. It was a pretty brutal army. It is surprisingly durable because you've got the 4-up invulns across the board. You've kind of got the stratagems that the custodians can use in terms of turn-off rerolls, transhuman. I'd like to say over the course of the event, we used our CP in a fair and equal manner. I'm fairly confident Jamie would disagree with that.
I think you did let me use 3 CP across the whole tournament.
So. Across the whole event, yeah. But, that's because custodians are better than Grey Knights. So that's what we'll attribute that to.
Same.
So the pairings were drawn, and we got the Fisting Machine. Yeah. Game 1. What a name. Top effort, guys. Jamie, would you like to tell everyone about the Fisting Machine that you've got at home?
Hey. We played against Fisting Machine first game. They won best painted and joint most supporting opponents. So great lads and beautiful army. But so starting off, we had Joseph Jones. He was running his Imperial Fist with his friend Nathan Dyer running Admech, toting Cool and a block of robots, which was quite nice to see, in 750 points to squeeze those in. I think the problem with this battle was it was always a bit one-sided. They had 1 squad of Eradicators and 1 squad of robots was about all that could really harm anything on our side. Well, at least so I thought originally. Going into that until a squad of his troops decided to unload into my Nemesis Dreadnought Grandmaster with a 3-up invul and take off about 3/4 of his wounds. So that was a little bit worrying in the first turn. But I think after
they charged, didn't they?
Yeah, they charged and swiftly died. I think when he just fell back, charged along with another Dreadnought, soon deleted those. I think, and then once Chris was obviously then able to move into the midfield with his bikes, I think we slowly started to dominate. And in the end, all he had left that could really damage us was some Eradicators, which they did eventually pop out and unload into Chris's bikes and deleted a whole squad essentially. So that wasn't looking good for our to the last. But we ran Auric Mortalis. Is it the secondary?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which we managed to score 15 on that due to killing the robots before they got within 6 inches of our board edge. We done okay on to the last. My Grandmaster never did end up dying, and we just lost the 1 squad of bikes. So I think in the end, it was a fairly comfortable win. It was just an unfortunate matchup for them, really. Final score was 90-54, and I think we ended up tabling them in turn 4. Which was quite fortunate, I think, because we were running close on time in the end there. So
I think it might have been actually turn 3, because if you think turn 1, they moved everything forward to the middle and almost killed your 3-up invuln guy. We counterattacked, killed all 20 intercessors and the 3 suppressors.
Yeah.
They then stuck their robots in the middle to kill our my shield captain. We then killed the robots turn 2 and then just pushed on. But as you say, we were running out of time. We were kind of talking through our turns, and this is a really important thing. If you're playing doubles, games do last longer than you think, but you're probably going to get allocated less time. Lee and I found that when we did our one, we got to turn 2 on Maelstrom. It was embarrassing. And here we had to really be playing through quickly.
2 hour 15 battle rounds were tough to get through.
It was brutal. So Lewis, make it more next time, please. It was. You had to be playing really quick, and we didn't have many models at all, so that's why we were able to get through it. But pretty happy with that first win. There were going to be more than one undefeated team at the event, so we knew we needed to score high, and we did, which put us on the top table. What were we against, Jamie, this time?
Secret Smurfs.
The Secret Smurfs, who were Dark Angels, and they had lots of Terminators, 15 of them, 3 squad to 5. And then they had the Ultramoons was a bit different, wasn't it, Jamie?
Yeah. So they had big block of Stern Guard, which was quite nice to see. I haven't really seen them since 6th edition. All rocking their special ammunition.
And las cannons.
2 las cannons snuck in there. Both both of them had a chaplain running around.
Yeah.
The Ultramarines one was for reroll hits and wounds, which was a little bit tasty with the Stern Guard. And yeah, he also had 2 squads of Eliminators with the Las Fusils, which were pretty scary actually. When he put the Seal of Oaths on one of the Dreadknights and proceeded to try and take him out first turn. We were lucky that he did end up splitting across 2 Dreadknights, which sort of saved us really, because I think if he'd have focused down one, that would have disappeared fairly sharply.
Well, that was it, wasn't it? It was this was Hammer Anvil, and it basically became a battle of the right-hand flank, because we redeployed over to the right. He then did the Ultramarine strat to redeploy over to the right, and he clearly felt confident all his shooting was going to take over stuff, because he Seal of Oathed one of the Dreadknights, and then shot his first 3 Las Fusils into the other Dreadknight.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, we've got a 4-up Invan. Are you expecting to hit and wound with everything and then us fail them all, and it still doesn't one-shot this Dreadknight? As it was, Jamie went hot with the saves and barely got scratched. So then we're thinking, right, here we go, time to apply the punishment. And then Jamie's Dreadknights went, no.
Yeah, shunted across to one side. One Dread decided that he was going to just scratch an Invader ATV over there.
Yeah, leave it on one wing.
And then with 2 Dreadknights left this side, didn't barely scratch anything.
I think that was the theme for the game. They had 10 Terminators to drop in, which they did in roughly the mid-board. But I think we played it well. We screened out well. We were playing really cagey with the Dreadknights. They very, very rarely saw combat over the whole event. And, we kind of were able to dominate that right flank and just push on forward. And I think we got to just about turn 4. They knew the time was up, both literally and metaphorically. So what was that score?
Bear with me, caller. Get it up on my screen. The score was 91-73. Yeah,
91-73, and actually not a huge amount died on either side, because turns out transhuman 4-up Invan Terminators are quite hard to shift. Who knew? Yep. And again, Auric Mortalis on the big block of Stern Guard got the full 15 there. And so because of that, we've won 2 games. And we're still get the joys of playing in the final. And you're thinking, well, the fun part of doubles is you get to mix and join lots of different lists together. We get to play Custodes and Grey Knights. There were people there with Eldar and Nids playing together for the Dark Reapers and the Crusher Stampedes. You've got all this good fun stuff. So, Jamie, what nice, exciting, fresh new combination did we get to play in our final game?
We thought we'd go hard mode in the final and face off against a double Custodes patrol.
Yes, double Custodes.
Beautifully painted, no doubt.
It was a beautiful army, which he basically painted all the day before with airbrush. But it was really cool thing. So what did they have?
They had Praetorian Plate, Shield Captain, and a Shield Captain on a bike, 2 squads of Sagittarium Guard, 2 squads of bikes, a Caladius, and an Achilles. Oh, and a squad of Wardens.
I see. So, we're playing a mission was where going second, you could potentially score 5 points by holding the middle of the board. You expect a Custody game to be quite close, so we're a bit of a disadvantage if we went first. So that was fun that we got to go first, really. Sorry about that minor delay. We've got a team mascot has joined us. Say hello, Lily, if you're on YouTube. Or say hello to you, Lily, if you're on YouTube.
Give him a wave.
There you go. No. Just wait for her to bark. She's the barkiest dog ever. So yeah, we did get to go first, which wasn't ideal. And Jamie, why don't you talk them through what excitement unfolded?
So, with going first, we sort of used the Castellan's Mark to redeploy the bike squads hard to one side where he'd had his Caladius parked. They also had Castellan's Mark, unfortunately didn't move him out the way. So yeah, we proceeded to throw 2 squads worth of salvos and a whole Dreadnought into the Caladius, tried to remove the threat early on, which didn't work.
It did not. No, it was what we did, like 9 wounds to it or something. Left it on 3, so not the best start. No.
And now the Caladius has received the Machine Spirit keyword. He was able to spend a CP for it to act on full bracket. So we essentially spent our whole first turn achieving very little.
Literally nothing. Yes.
While they still had the benefit of going second for the potential 5 points at the end. So, yeah, it didn't start very well for us, this game at all.
No.
But yeah, I think after that, it sort of became a bit of a slog for the middle. We tried to trade Sisters and Sagittarium in there to try and hold for Stranglehold. They fortunately didn't kill all our Sisters, and we had some hiding out of line of sight, so that sort of gave us 2 turns of parking them on the central objective. Wish we made one faux pas of forgetting they were not obsec.
Yeah, they're not obsec, guys.
Sitting there with 3 Sisters on an objective, and he's got 2 sags there, and he's like, "Well, I hold this," or 1 sag there. He's like, "Well, I hold this. You're not obsec." It's like, no.
Yeah, you know our rules better than we remembered them. Good.
Bit of a slip up there, but I think we were sort of lucky that turn 3, my Dread Knights decided to turn on the heat and remove 2 bikes from each of the 2 squads they had. And at that point,
turn 2, wasn't it?
Yeah. And at that point, they're so neutered, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that was the point, the turning point really, where we sort of thought, well, we could start to push home our advantage now and start to sweep the table.
It was. It was they went on the opposite flank with the Auric Mortalis unit of 3 bikes we'd chosen, so they were miles away, and then they start 3 bikes and the shield captain on the middle objective just to threaten. Custodian mirror matches can often be that 4-up invuln. And thankfully, they just started failing them all. And after the dust had settled of our turn 2 shooting phase, the Auric Mortalis unit only had 1 left, which was ideal. And then in the middle, they'd lost 2 from that unit as well. So they had just the shield captain, who was now left on 2 wounds and 1 guy. So at that point, Jamie, we decided to charge. How much do you want to talk about that charge phase, Jamie?
Very little. Don't want any animosity. But no, we had what we considered a 5-inch charge to the shield captain in the central objective. We declared that was a 5-inch charge. Nothing was said. We rolled a 5, moved the models in, at which point our opponent decided that wasn't a 5-inch charge and discussed for about 15 minutes why it shouldn't have been. And so, he thought we'd best roll off for it. He won the roll off and decided it wasn't a 5-inch charge. So I think in the end, it was nice that karma came back on our side and we still walked away with victory.
You've managed to just about let it go. No, it was an interesting one. I think it was discussed in a reasonable manner, but it was just very politely, we both disagreed with each other. Just from our measurements, we were like, that's a 5, and now like, I don't know, I'm not sure. I did see P re-roll it. Obviously, I re-rolled it into a 1-1, so that didn't put paid to the argument either. It felt bad because at that point it was actually a 9-point swing because it gave them hold more. It stopped us from scoring Stranglehold and from scoring 2 points for holding the centre. So at that point in the game, which you feel is going to be very close, it is quite frustrating. But it was all fine at the end of the day. And as it was turn 3, you knew you were fine. And I think we tabled them turn 4.
Yeah.
I think we lost hardly anything, did we?
Yeah. My servitors lived in that battle in the middle of the table, which is not very often that happens. But no, I think we lost a few bikes.
5 Grey Knights, maybe.
Yeah.
A unit of bikes.
Yeah, 1 Grey Knight was left at the end, so we lost 4.
Yeah. So
it's very, very strong showing from us in that game, really. But yeah, we won that 89-49. So
yeah, and I think we played well, especially the first game we played across the event. Like the first game, it was we blew our CP. We just we knew what was going to happen. We knew we were going to win. We didn't play particularly great per se, a bit riskier than we should have, but we really played cagey in games 2 and 3, and we made the most of our resources. We traded positively. I just think we played quite good Warhammer, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that left 3 teams at the end on 3-0. So we had the exciting and nervous wait to see if we'd managed to score the most battle points. Now, second place managed to win the game with 34 points, which is quite impressive even in itself.
Yeah, that's genuinely impressive.
How do you do
They're
that?
the true winners.
They must have only played like 2 turns or something.
That's apparently not.
They said
No?
they got to the end, but they forgot about objectives.
If at this point then you guys go on to gloat about winning this event, it's going to be a hard
Funny
sell.
you should say that, Lee, because YouTube viewers, look at that beautiful trophy.
C3 trophy.
Jamie, why didn't he let you take it?
Because he's the 6++ entrepreneur, so
I'm the most
He's the
important
boss.
person here.
He gets the
I did
spoils.
offer it to Jamie. So I already got a Saffron Slam one, but he said, no. I know how sad you'll be if you don't. So
He's really into how sad you are.
I mean,
and he's still got the
that's the thing.
certificate.
So we won this. We also won a Combat Patrol, Dark Angels Combat Patrol. So if you're interested, it is currently up on eBay for £50.
Is that a good deal? I don't know.
Well, it's £68 with a discount. It's £85 from GW. So Lee, if you want to buy some more Black Templars,
That's not the box I'd buy.
it's got Redemptor in it, mate.
Got
Well, I heard
Redemptors.
Dark Angels went second at Lee's RTT, so
Yeah,
they're obviously a powerful
Everybody
army.
should get on the Dark Angels hype.
Yeah, some
Get
guy
them
called
nerfed.
Paul who we don't really know.
I
or
certainly
like.
don't like.
Certainly don't like. With 40 Terminators came second. So we'd like to say not congratulations, Paul.
No, not congratulations, but well done anyway.
We're sad. We're sad you just weren't 6++ for the
Yeah,
event. That's all it is.
bitter. Right, I'm going to go with bitter.
We're just bitter, that's all. So no, it was a successful day
No, well done, guys.
for Alex Harrison's Water Boys, as we were known. And big shout out to team mascot for the day, Chantel, my girlfriend, who came along to try and have some idea of the sort of bizarreness that we do.
Did you come away any wiser?
She came away a lot more confused about many things. But
Why
she
she's with
did-
you is the first one.
That's the main thing. But she did read almost the entirety of Michael McIntyre's autobiography.
Oh, she was really keen on what you were doing then.
Yeah. So
Her interest
that's how
waned
much
after the
attention.
first
No,
game.
first game she was sat there in the thick of the action. She got to roll the first roll of who got to go first. She lost that, so she was immediately fired. I think she was too nervous to in any way contribute at all for the next two. But no, it's really interesting, and hopefully one day she will agree to come on, because she's read the first Horus Heresy books and she really enjoyed them. She wasn't a fan of how they ended, but she did really enjoy the first 3 books. And it's just interesting to get an outsider's perspective, isn't it? Because it's such a complicated game.
Yeah, I think we still assume so much of each other. There's so much that you actually know that you don't realise that you know. The
It's
context.
a language, isn't it,
Yeah.
as well? Like, I remember her saying once, she watched one of our battle reports and was like, so they've got an invulnerable, so does that mean there's such a thing as a vulnerable? And you're like, yes, that's so true. Like, I wouldn't even have ever thought of that in a million years.
Is she coming on next week to the business?
Yeah, absolutely. She's going to talk about it from an outside. We will get you on this. I know she's going to listen to this, so we will get you on this, Chantel, one day, I promise. But no, it was great to have her support and her to take photos of our victory, which are now on the Instagram. So yeah, that's our tournament roundup. And we're now going to very quickly have a chat about something very exciting that's coming up this weekend for, well, 2 of the 3 of us. Seamless segue there. Thank you very much. We are now going to talk about the International Team Tournament, which is coming up this weekend, assuming I can edit this podcast in time, in which case it's coming up this weekend. Very exciting. 64 teams. There are some European teams coming, and it's going to be a bit of a smash fest. Really high quality players. There's players from like Team England, Glasshammer Gaming, even Twisted Dice. Damn you, Tom. they're all going, as well as little old 6++. So for those who don't know team tournaments, this one is 5-player teams, and you kind of have this phase before the games start where you pair up in a strategic way. You kind of put forward defenders and attackers and match yourselves up. Then each player goes and plays their game. Then you've got to try and score as many points as a team as possible and score more than them, is essentially how it goes. There's choices of terrain and all those sorts of things. It's a really interesting format. We've never done it before. We've listened to podcasts on it and that sort of thing, but we've never actually done it before. So we're really excited. So we have had to come up with 5 different lists. So Jamie, what are you taking?
I'm taking Tau Sept from the Tau Empire Codex.
Tau good stuff. Excellent. Are there any standouts in your list?
Long Strike is always going to be a standout.
Of course. OP.
UKTC have ruled before that he benefits from bodyguards, so it's always worth throwing him in there just for that until they rule it otherwise. But yeah,
is he going to be your MVP?
Broadsides, I think, will be MVP. 3 of those touting heavy rail rifles are pretty darn scary. But yeah, also obviously the Crisis bodyguards will be the MVP. Obviously, protecting said characters. It's tough to say. We'll see how it goes. I think it depends grossly on the matchups. Whether we've got infantry heavy or vehicle heavy.
Hordes, it's not going to. Yeah. And what sort of terrain are you looking to play on?
I think, as with all Tau, light terrain will help me with lines of fire on my broadsides and long strike. But even if I end up on a dense table, I've got quite a lot of out of line of shots like shooting. So
you've got a lot of manoeuvrability as well and pre-game moves, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which one of the missions you don't get to use on. But
I think it's the very first, isn't it? I've got 7 pre-game
Are they
moves.
using that mission?
Yeah. Yes, they are. It's the first mission.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
I'm really surprised they are. So they're using Abandoned Sanctuary, which is the mission where you can't pre-game move or infiltrate.
Zach isn't afraid of making a big call like that.
Yeah, I've got 2 infiltrators and 6 pre-game moves, so yeah, that'll be interesting. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Zach. So we've got Tower good stuff. We then have Custody good stuff, run by myself. My list comes to 2k on the nose, which is so hard to do on Custody, so I'm taking that as a moral victory. I am also still annoyed with Warhammer tournaments because they have ruled that Alaris minimum size is 3. Like pretty much no other tournament is taking on. So basically it was like the power rankings update. GW messed up the copy and paste so often and they listed Alaris as scores of 3 to 10. Yeah, it's unheard of.
I reckon I've got about 9 different values for the points of the Herald of Slanesh somewhere. All probably currently relevant.
It's just so annoying, but nowhere else. The Codex, Alaris 1 to 6. Points update, which they dropped immediately upon release of the Codex because they're that inept, 1 to 6. Power rankings, we'll go back to the 3 to 10. Warhammer tournaments have decided to use that. So it meant my 2 single Alaris, which is so useful for screening out or just throwing onto stranglehold objectives or anything like that, I can't do. So I've had to drop them completely. So I have got the Inquisitor in there now, who basically, if I don't take mental interrogation, does exactly the same thing and just sits on the back or runs forward. Got 2 Galatus Dreadnoughts. Now I've still got my 3 units of 3 bikes, and then just some midboard Sagittarium, Wardens, all the general stuff that most lists are using. I've had 1 practice game with it. I beat Sisters. It's not the hardest matchup though, so I think that'll be interesting to see how they get on. We then have got Dave and his Grey Knights. Jamie, what Grey Knights is he running?
Yeah, he's running Prescient Brethren. He's got 4 Dread Knights, Kaldor Drago, the Mortal Wound Bomb Librarian, and then just a couple of strikes, a couple of interceptors, and some paladins, which is obviously not seen very often.
Cheeky pies. So yeah, obviously in terms of matchups, I think we're going to learn a lot in terms of what we're good and bad into over the course of the weekend. You can kind of think, I can take this, I can take that. But if you're not that practiced, I'm going into the event thinking, well, Tau can probably take most things because they are at events. Custodies can take most things because they are at events. Grey Knights can't take Tau or Custodies, so we don't want to put Dave into that. And then we'll see the sort of things he's played a lot into Jamie's Sisters and has been beating that. there are some matchups where it's good. What other matchups do you think Grey Knights are good for, Jamie?
Well, historically, they were always good into T-Suns on initial release. That they sort of neuter a lot of the T-Sun's strength.
Yeah.
I don't see that being any different now. I know that Grey Knights have been toned down a tiny bit, but I don't see that changing.
No, when I ran Grey Knights into Leicester, there was Necrons as well. There's still a few of them at the team tournament. I mean, they fall down ever so quickly to Dread Knight shooting. When they got 18 shots each, a lot of the infantry-heavy armies just struggle to cope with that. So, yeah, hopefully there are some matchups there that will be favourable for him.
Absolutely. And then we've got Jamie. He's taking Sisters of Battle. So Jamie's been playing Death Guard for ages and has recently switched to Sisters. And it's been an adapting process for Jamie because he likes to run at the opponent. And Sisters are quite a bit more fragile than Death Guard. So that's been a bit of a slow one for him. But I think he's getting to grips with it a bit more. He's got Bloody Rose. He's got, Repentia. He's gone for the Paragon war suits, which have been putting in some mark, I think, as long as he doesn't throw them away to salvo launchers. Jamie, nudge, nudge, win, win. And he's got Sacrosancts, Retributors, Morgan Val, all that sort of thing. So I think it'll be interesting to see how we utilise him. And then for our fifth player, we've got Lee. Oh, wait. Lee, what's going on?
Well, I was going to come, and I was either going to run my T-Suns or the Chaos Demons. And then very last minute, I was invited to go and watch England versus Wales in the Six Nations on Saturday. And I honestly decided a free bar lunch in the rugby was probably a better day out.
So he's...
So what I've done though is
I've his 6++ card.
I've made space for a far better player to join.
Yeah, that was it. That was a tattoo. I mean, he doesn't know, but I actually emailed Mercedes to get them to talk this. So I don't blame you. It's a very exciting opportunity for you, but I do still hate for it.
Yeah,
but we do have Jack of Team War Masters, who are one of the top teams in the country, and we see Jack at various events. He's a very good orc player. And so he's going to be bringing his orcs. What sort of orcishness has he got, Jamie?
He's gone for Goth's good stuff, I assume. But yeah, my knowledge on Goths is minimal, to say the least.
I played against Goths once. Kieran, I know you listen. I got my one practice game of Custodies into orcs against him, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go at the orcs, and I'm going to see what's going to happen. And what happened is, turn 2, I lost half my army. It turns out that when you're fighting orcs on multiple fronts, and they don't care about rerolls, they just have weight of attacks. And Kieran absolutely butchered me. It was so painful. So I learned that if I play against orcs, don't run at them and let them charge you. I think I was trying 5 bikes, and his 6 meganobs just one-shot them. Just like that.
Yeah.
So, pretty horrendous. So
looks a very similar list to what Jack's got. Just having a quick pull-up of it now. He's got Gazgul Thracker, Weird Boy, some Beast Snaggers, 2 big squads of meganobs, and 3 squads of Squig Hogs, Battle Wagon, and a Death Dread.
What more do you need, Jack?
Lots of slapping.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's exciting to see how he kind of gets on with that. As a team, I guess in terms of our matchups, we're going to be looking, right, can we get the Custodes and Tau into favourable matchups to win because they're just strong armies? We know Jack scores highly no matter what his opponent is using because that's the way his list works. And then can we eke out... I mean, I don't want to say that we're just going to throw Jamie and Dave under the bus in every game, but we might.
I don't think you need to say it after that.
Yeah. No, obviously,
you might have to buy him a beer after each round.
Yeah. You do hear about it though. They're like, we knew that if we could just take out this one bad matchup, so we threw blah blah under the bus. So, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, dice happen, games happen. We're not quite like the pros, so we can't predict with certainty how matchups will go, but I think it's going to be a really interesting experience. I think our objective is really just to learn the format and kind of take it from there, really. There are some unbelievably top tier teams there, but there are also people there going for fun, and I think it's going to be a good time, really. This will be one of the first times you've used your list, Jamie, won't it?
Yeah, so I've ran the new codex probably 5-6 times now, but I've yet to run this list at all yet.
We've got a practice game on Friday, don't we?
So practice game against you on Friday.
Yeah, that'll be it, and then we'll find out if you can go into the custodies, won't we?
Well, I saw how well Lee done with 0 practice with lists. So I thought, well, I'll try and emulate that success.
Learn from the pros.
It's stressful, JB. I'll tell you that.
It will be.
I think I always try and think of each event as a learning process, and this will be the first time really I've used this particular custodies list. I'm already bored of custodies to an extent, everyone's running the same list.
I knew you would do that. You don't like to play the list that everyone's playing.
I hate playing the list, and I end up doing it. I obviously doing it with AdMech. And so we've got an event on March as the one Lee's going to. It's a 2 down. I'm already either I'm going to randomly generate my custodies list, or I'm just going to take a load of bikes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put it to a vote on the YouTube channel.
You're going to get AdMech if you do that.
No. It's whether I just go, right, it's either this custodies army or this custodies army.
You're not a dictator, Chris. Give the people the choice.
You got to put another option there.
Huh?
You got to put an option for other.
An option for other.
You can run the Disciples of Bellicor list if you like. I'll run your custodies.
Yeah. We could, we could do that, or I could take,
or something different,
or not, or I could run 1,000 Suns.
Yeah,
we should talk about this. That could be fun. Yeah. You could run my custodians, and I could run one of your armies, just for a change.
You could run your Necron army with all your D6 shots and D6 damage.
I could. I do have a Necron list, which I used to run in 8th.
6++ fans will love that.
They would they? Well, you know what? I'm going to put it to a massive vote on YouTube. So watch this space. Once I upload this, I'll do the community post, and you can have a vote, fans.
We will.
Cool. So that's the team tournament. We'll obviously next week we'll do an episode on how it goes. Tom will hopefully be able to join us and talk about how he won the whole event with Twisted Dice A team, or hopefully more likely how we beat them, because that could be an exciting matchup. So we've got one more segment for you, and that is going to be our lore segment up next. I thought the lore, and the lore one is of course our lore segment, so beautifully named by Tom. And today Jamie is making his debut in style. He's going to talk about everyone's famous or everyone's favourite happy communists, the Tau. Although he's told us they're actually not all lovable Teletubbies, so let's find out if that's true.
Hi there, guys. So, like Chris said, really, I think everyone's got the idea of Tau of being maybe the happy-go-lucky new boys in the block in the galaxy. I thought I'd just talk to you a little bit about the casts, how they work, and how people react when people aren't sticking to their casts very well. So within Tau Society, they have an air cast, which is the messengers, carriers, pilots, and the like. An earth cast, which are the builders, engineers, planners. Fire cast, which is what you'll see on the tabletop, with the warriors, frontline fighters. And the water cast, the bureaucrats, diplomats, ambassadors, the talking guys. And then all ran by the ethereal cast, sort of control all of the Tau through propaganda, indoctrination, pheromones, various ways. I'm going to speak about one book in particular, if I remember what it's called. I'm going to speak a little bit about a lady, or a Tau female, in Blades of Damocles' book. She's Por El Amante. Por being she's from the water caste, and El is the second highest rank that they can achieve, O being the highest. So if you think of the old Dawn of War games, Shazo Kais, Shaz being from the fire caste, and then highest rank being O. So Por El is a water caste diplomat, and she, unlike all the other diplomats, lives underground on Dalith, which is one of the main Sept worlds. But she has a dirty little secret of.
I bet she does.
He's a toy boy.
She creates water sculptures, and in Tau, it's very much forbidden to cross over the caste system. So the Earth caste are very much the builders, and for anyone else to sort of start creeping across Septs is forbidden. She speaks in the book about people who disappear. They'll come and be arrested, you could say, go on trial against the Ethereals, and if found guilty, they'll be taken away. And most of these never found again. But those that do return,
Sounds like China.
those that do return, it's probably something similar.
Thanks,
Chris. Something similar to what you'd call lobotomized, I guess. She says their intelligence of those akin to the drone handlers. Within this same story, we hear about Farsight on trial. He's let the Space Marines come and attack Daleth in the eyes of the Ethereals. Pretty sure he wouldn't have just allowed it to happen, but in their eyes, this is what happened. He gave a rallying speech at one of the lakes, and they had this sort of digested by the watercast, and they found various diplomatic techniques in there that they felt that someone from the Firecast probably shouldn't be aware of. Shouldn't have these. Shouldn't have this gift with his voice, so to speak. During the same battles, he was able to repair his custom XV8 battlesuits, which is seen as something only the Earthcast should be able to do. So after looking through all this, Aunvar, the main ethereal guy, not very happy, and he evicts him, sends him to go and find his Commander Puretide, who was his tutor. And sends him off in exile. Tells him that if he fails in this task, he is to be killed. So
doesn't mince his words, does he?
No, he's pretty grim. This Aunvar. We got another little section.
Is he playable?
Of book. Yeah, he is. Seemingly a lovely guy sitting there on his little pupit.
Oh, that's him. Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah.
But there's another book.
Tower Pope.
Yeah. There's another watercast, not a diplomat, an ambassador, that's the one. Aunvar chastises this ambassador due to one of their students speaking out against the ethereal caste in defense of Farsight. Aunvar speaks that the ethereals are sort of a keystone of Tau society. They support them as much as the society supports them. He states that anyone who speaks out against the ethereals can crumble the entire Tauvar society. Due to the insubordination, he tells her to take out a bonding knife, which she does without question, then simply tells her to kill herself. So the ambassador reverses her knife and plunges it into her chest to the hilt.
Carry style.
So they follow the words of the ethereals to sort of the letter.
Do they follow it out of fear, or
I think
do they believe
they're just indoctrinated into thinking that's the right thing to do. When I was before, back in 6th edition, I think it was in the 6th edition codex, there was words of pheromones involved, so it's just a control through that. It's never fully stated the reasons why, but I think it's just a bit of propaganda and pheromones and a bit of everything, really. So perhaps there really are no good guys in the galaxy, and the best thing is for Tom to get his own way and the day of ascension to come and Tyranids digest us all. So
there's so many great ways to die in the 40k universe.
Yeah, that's not the one I would pick, I don't think.
We could do a whole episode on it, couldn't we, really?
Yeah, 101 ways to die in the 41st millennium.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think that's a great one. No, well, thank you very much.
101 maybe too many, but
probably nowhere near enough.
I played the computer game Fire Warrior.
Oh, what a game!
I read the book, which was great. I actually really enjoyed the book. I had a little Tau Force when they first came out many moons ago. Lee, you collected Tau, didn't you?
Yeah, I had some in 7th edition.
Sold them though.
I have.
They were painted white. So
they were. Sorry, whoever got those now, who's having to top those up.
Apologise.
Strip them down.
I
mean, they weren't painted well, so they probably stripped them down anyway.
I think it's always interesting to find out, because I know when I know a faction, I just assume everyone knows the same facts that you do. So I think it's always interesting to hear about that. So nice to know that they are
just as dark as the Imperium.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, well, that is us all wrapped up for today. Thank you very much, Jamie and Lee. Pleasure as always.
Pleasure's mine.
And we will be back next week to tell you all about how Lee managed to become a streaker and streak across the England Wales game, and Jamie and I are international team tournament champions. So until
We'll
then,
see which is the most likely.
yeah.
I'll have had a lot to drink by then, so I think there's a good chance.
Yeah, exactly. But no, thanks a lot for joining us, guys, and we will see you again next week. Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Bye.